Hey everyone, it's Coach Mo Fall with an awesome interview. I've got a dynamic duo, and I'm going to show you today the success factors of no matter what your dominant personality, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, how the success factors that we actually use in the Kick-Ass Career Workshop and all of our advanced programs, how they work with women, no matter where they fall on that introverted, extroverted spectrum. It takes all kinds to lead. And these two wonderful women who are joining me today came from different backgrounds, different industries, different professions, and they're rocking it in their respective professions. And I want to welcome Nadia Clifford. Thank you for joining us on this interview. And Jennifer Ryan, thank you for joining us. Nadia, why don't you go first and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pass it over to Jen, and then we'll get right into the interview.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Nadia Clifford. I am a Senior Director of Engineering Program Management. That's a mouthful. I work for a very high-tech team. I orchestrate planning and execution of high-tech projects in engineering, in IoT specifically. So it's a lot of complexity, a lot of dependencies, and I've been in digital transformations and high-tech for the last 25 years. Even before that was a thing.
Yeah, right. Before transformation was like something that people wanted. You saw the world that way.
My first transformation was actually when my mother hired me. I was still in college, and I computerized a paper fax swivel chair process. So that was my first digital transformation back in the day.
Like it. Cutting your teeth with your mom and dad's company. I love it. I love it. And then we have Jennifer Ryan. Jennifer, welcome, and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here as well. I am Jennifer Ryan. I'm a director of consumer marketing at a pharmaceutical company. I have 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry. I've had many different roles along my journey. It's a fascinating place to be. I love healthcare. I love patients. I love seeing the result of the product that so many in our industry work to produce and create, and the great outcomes it can have on our patients. And I love the challenge. I love the challenge of marketing. So a very exciting career with a lot of flips and turns that I'm sure we'll be talking about, but I'm really happy to be where I am today.
Yeah, awesome. And both of these ladies, folks, have taken advantage of continual coaching. And Nadia, when were you in our first 12-week program?
I believe I started 5 years ago, actually. A little bit more than 5 years. Yeah, I'm a veteran.
Right. And it was 2 or 3 years for you, Jen?
Yeah, I'd say we're going on 3 years because I was coming out of the peak of COVID.
Yes.
The peak of COVID, which was a very interesting time to be going through a career transformation.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So many were. So.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So Nadia, when we first started working together, you were burnt out and sort of weren't sure if you were going to be able to really play at the level or even higher. What was going on, and what did you learn in that first coaching dose, if you will, that we worked together 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was really burnt out to the point that I got physically sick. I was overworked, overstressed, and the first round of coaching, the first 12 weeks, really showed me my worth. It showed me how to draw boundaries, how to actually like myself, because it seems basic, but I wasn't happy with who I was at the moment. And there was a lot of learning of actually loving who you are, who I am myself. And then realizing that I was playing way too small, and I was letting people and certain circumstance treat me badly, and I wasn't drawing the boundaries. So that was my first leap after those 12 weeks to a higher level job, much better pay, much better environment.
Yes. Yes. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today, which I'm really excited to showcase both of you is you're an introverted person. You're an engineer, you're in the IT world. What did you think was possible for you as an introvert who was burnt out? Like, sounds like the deck was stacked against you on one hand.
Yeah, it did seem like that. I had always wanted to be an executive eventually at some point in my life, because as I said, my mother was my first employer. So I always had
Yeah.
her as a role model because she
Yes.
started 4 different businesses.
Mhm.
And at that point in my career 5 years ago, I was not seeing how that would happen. I was quiet. I kind of felt squished down, and I thought I had to be this big personality. I was not.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is it. I'm going to stay in these mid-level roles for the rest of my career.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was not true. But
No.
before we go into more of that, keep you hanging, folks. Jennifer, you have sort of the opposite problem. So when
Sort of
we
the
first met,
opposite.
yeah, what was going on with your career, and what did you learn about success in the way that was needed to work for you?
Yeah, so I guess I'm the extrovert in this equation. Absolutely true. And similar to Nadia, though, like I started out in advertising, where everybody, again, pharmaceutical advertising, but advertising industry is a little bit different. It's run by creatives, and
Mhm.
big personalities are welcome, right? Big personalities are encouraged.
Mhm.
And then when I transferred to the corporate side, being a game player and understanding how to build your network and make your connections and make a lot of agreements and things come to fruition more quietly behind the scenes
Mhm.
was a game that I needed to learn how to play. I needed to understand the rules, because as hard as I worked, I
Yes.
wasn't getting ahead, because I thought, oh, my personality is my personality and everybody gets me and I wear it on my sleeve and everybody knows what I'm thinking because I share my emotions a lot.
Yeah.
I thought that
Yeah.
was the way that I had to operate, and I didn't realize I could still 100% be myself, but understand some of the rules of the game so I could get ahead with the knowledge and the enthusiasm and the passion I have for my industry, but also understand some of the inner workings of how to navigate a corporate career. So I wasn't pushing myself out of other opportunities, right? And this was a lot of what we worked on Mo, on figuring out your communication style and how to work your network and those around you to be able to be part of corporate America, using and still embracing your soul and your personality, but not excluding yourself from certain opportunities because you're just not communicating your value as well. And I was just, when we met, I had just separated from a company. It was part of a COVID situation. It was part of a poor fit. And I was also at the place where I was doubting my own worth and my ability to get ahead in corporate America. And a lot of it was because I wasn't understanding some of the communication skills and the other interpersonal skills I needed to hone in on to be able to make my value known.
Yes. And the sort of the myth of being an extrovert is that extroverts have their act together and they feel confident. And I think one of the Nadia is probably maybe hearing that for the first time. No, just kidding. What? Extroverts don't? So no matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, inside is a woman who's been sort of pushed around or denied or pushed aside. And when you say you learned that there's a different way to play the game, you can't just extrovert your way through life or your career. What's one of those, and I know you've been very successful in your current role, and you've been there long enough to have had success after success. What's the one thing that you can really say that I've become the best version of me and this is how it's showing up differently?
I think I've become the best version of me because, and this is a lesson that we went over, Coach Mo, and we called it working your cube, right? I know I understand who I need to influence to get my agenda move forward. I know who I need to speak to officially, let's say, above the line in communication styles that are open to all. And I need to know who I have to speak with, say below the line to a degree, and have personal one-on-one conversations, who I need to influence quietly, who I need to put out there to the broader audience, and how forming these relationships is so critical to being viewed as a success and getting your agenda through, right? More so than I'm out there and I'm doing all the work and look at me, I'm the hardest worker.
Right.
It's saying you can trust me, right? I know what levers I need to push. I know who I need to have on my side. And that really put me in my current role, and I think, and I'm pretty sure because of the opportunities I've been given, in a place of trust with my company, because I know how to have the conversations. I know who I need to influence. I know, my inputs and my outputs, how to work that network in a way that I stand up my story, but I've already vetted a lot of my story with those who matter.
And here's the insider truth on that. You had to trust yourself first before you could do that.
Yep.
And that's, with sort of having a little bit of a bumpy career and not knowing why you weren't really advancing, and sort of getting at the crux of you not really feeling comfortable or trusting yourself. That gives you a power gear that feels different as an extrovert, doesn't it? It's not as much out-facing power as it's internally feeling. Go ahead and describe it so I don't have to.
100%, right? When you have the communication tools, right, and you have aligned to your soul, and you have come to trust yourself and know your value, you have a very comfortable, and I like to say, my internal platform, my internal voice, I always trust now, right? If I trust my voice, I know I have 25 years of experience. I'm every day going in to do the right thing. I listen for the truth and I speak the truth. So I can trust me. I am my North Star, right? And once you can operate from that place and you're not constantly doubting if you're saying the right thing or doing the right thing, and you know what your sphere of influence is, you can move forward. And honestly, this is how I advance. I know no matter what, I have it covered. There's nothing you can throw at me that I can't handle, because I have this inner core of knowledge and experience and trust and self-worth that I know how I can handle any problem thrown my way. So where previously, and some of this is age and experience, beyond the coaching, but where normally I would fall apart out loud, also being an extrovert, I don't use my inner voice a lot. I now know I don't have to fall apart. I can work it through internally and feel powerful in my own strength, that I can get through anything.
Right. And Nadia, I know that in listening to Jennifer, you're thinking to yourself, that's exactly my experience. But again, sort of the self-worth, the inner trust, how has that worked for you? Totally different style. And you've had massive influence in the roles that you've had over these past 5 years.
Yeah, I think the first step was embracing my own style, embracing my introvertness and quietness, and because I was so convinced, and I'm seeing these male role models in leadership roles that are super confident, that are extroverted, that just look very different from me, and I'm a petite woman and very quiet. And I did learn to embrace my style. And more, you've shared other examples of other women in leadership roles that are out there in corporate America, and I just started to understand that this is my style and I can still be a leader. And embracing this style was a game changer, because now I see it as strength. Because being an introvert, I observe a lot and I'm aware of different interactions that are happening between people. Like Jennifer was saying, playing the politics game, which I also thought, oh, this is toxic. I don't want to do politics. But when you look at it as a game of chess and strategy, and my strength is being observant and thoughtful and picking out the players and figuring out their agendas and how do I fit my agenda into their agendas. So it's actually quite a powerful combination. And also I did have to learn to speak up more, and I'm still sometimes not comfortable being in the public spotlight. But nonetheless, when I do speak, because I don't speak as often, I know that it holds a little bit more gravitas, because when I do finally speak, people do listen more carefully.
That's the hidden secret of being an introvert. People want more out of an introvert than usually an introvert wants to give. And being a very smart woman, being able to be a problem solver, being able to look at complex issues, is really a gift that you have. And I remember the first time that you really showed up at a huge level when you had, I think it was the job you got first, where you had to run a whole team of engineers on a project. You remember that? Remember I forget what the number was, but it was a pretty big number of engineers you had to.
Yeah, there were a few moments when I had to really step in. One of them was when it was actually a traumatic moment when our engineering leader was laid off in the middle of a meeting, and I couldn't tell the team what happened because it was kind of not an appropriate time. And I had to step in and lead the engineering planning meeting with all these engineers, and it went flawlessly. And after the fact, while I'm holding all this news inside, I informed them what happened. And then another instance was another growth spurt for me when I had to run a quarterly planning meeting for a technology organization of over 100 people. And that was early on in COVID. And it was the first time that was done fully virtually. It had never been done before. So that was quite a spotlight when you had to pull something off like that in a huge corporation. It's very visible.
Yes. And I think you've made 3 job moves since we've worked together. Each time, more money, higher influence, higher level of responsibility and accountability. What did you have to grab from inside, or what did you learn to grab inside in the work that we did together?
Well, it's definitely this inner confidence that I think Jennifer was also talking about, and trusting myself. And we had a mantra recently that Mo, you shared: I'm not wrong here. Because after you've had 25 years of experience and you've been in all these different roles, when you have a gut feel about something, you're usually right, probably 90% of the time. And so that helped so much, just to tell myself, I am not wrong here. I'm not wrong here. Also learning to step into this executive presence and know that I will figure it out. I will know what to do. I will know what to say. And just to know that things will work out, because with all the experience I have, with all the coaching, I'm just bound to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked earlier about limiting beliefs and understanding your worth and finding your value. I know you've had to advance some projects along the way, which wouldn't be possible if you didn't feel valued, valuable, and worthy. How much has that helped you?
It's a huge help, right? Because if you're pitted against some political happenings in a company, and somebody else is working against your agenda, you really have to be confident in your own values and in what you represent to be able to objectively work towards your goal, and to be able to influence others to kind of steer them also towards your goal. So it's very, very important.
Jennifer, back to sort of the extrovert learning how to navigate the room differently. You've just had some big wins in your role and have been asked to participate in other things. How much different is that experience for you now that you've really learned how to channel who you are and what you're all about, trust yourself, and being seen, let's call it differently?
Yeah.
What
That's a big deal.
about
And I just want to give a shout out to Nadia for saying you're not wrong here. I'm not wrong here.
Mhm.
I have on my laptop, you probably can't read it, but it says, be the observer.
Yes.
And that's the motto a lot for us extroverts, right? Like,
Yes.
be
Mhm.
the observer. So many
Mhm.
extroverts, we're people who are in the family, we're the problem solver or the entertainer.
Mhm.
So we feel like we need to, fill in the silence gaps. Be the
Mhm.
observer. Be the
Mhm.
observer. A lot of time there's a gap in silence for
Yeah.
a reason, and your voice doesn't need to fill that in. So my
Mhm.
mantra, as it is stuck on my laptop and all my monitors, is be the observer. And that has gotten me, I think, a lot more trust within this new organization I've been with for 2 years. So it's not even that new anymore. And I've been afforded a lot of opportunities
Yep.
because my company can put me in a lot of different roles, right? And this is something, Coach Mo, that we've been through is
Mhm.
when you want to get to that next level, you're not all on the subject matter expert, I know the most, I do the most. It's nope, I can solve problems. I can figure out who I need to bring in to solve problems. I can listen to your problems, translate them in my brain, and help you come to solution. So being the observer has put me in a place where I have been afforded across the organization opportunity, not
Right.
just vertical opportunity
Yeah.
within my own thread. And I think a lot of that
Yeah.
is bringing that executive presence
Mhm.
of really listening, right? And so much a part of it is like saying I'm listening or hearing and not listening and listening. And a lot of that also is the soul and meditation work about being able to calm yourself and live in the moment, be in the present, and being in the present and being able to focus, I think, is another skill that
Yes.
has propelled me to the
Yes.
next level where I can truly figure out what needs to be solved right now and for whom, rather than tuning out and already thinking of the next problem or 15 steps down the road. The strategic
Yes.
leaders, we always need to be thinking 5 steps ahead, but at the same time, having presence is
Yes.
such a game changer,
Yeah.
And leaders, other leaders can see if you're present or not. They can see that.
Absolutely. And you were thrown a big crisis a little bit ago, as I recall, and you expressed that you handled it completely differently. The
Yep.
question I have for you is not only that situation, but how have people responded who have known you for years, who now see a different, dare I say, more empowered, more whole version of Jennifer? Tell me about what you're getting as feedback on.
That's really interesting. Well, one, from you and my coaching, colleagues and peers like Nadia have seen me handle things in a much more calm, cool, and collected way. But
Mhm.
also, I have a lot of other industry colleagues that I've known, and we've been on this journey of ours for years together. And I said, oh yeah, last week I had to change up a plan for a meeting that had 400 people, and overnight I had to, redo something. And there was a lot of, oh my God, no way. Are you so mad? Are you so annoyed? Like, I can't believe that, blah, 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 blah. That's such BS. And I was like, no, I figured it out. I called 3 people and it was solved, like things that, and I share with colleagues still, because I want to say you can get through these similar things without going off the deep end. Like I usually would do. I would usually immediately emotionally react and go off the deep end, and then think about how to solve the problem and not really
Yes.
hear what
Yes.
anybody's telling me, because my emotions have formed a wall around me
Yeah.
of not letting me actually think clearly with my presence brain.
Mhm.
So things, now I see my peers reacting to issues, that sending them over the deep end, that me, it's just like bat it away, bat it away, bat it
Mhm.
away. I'm coming
Uh-huh.
from my place of truth. I'm speaking in my true voice.
Yeah.
I'm coming from my soul. Throw it at me, right? Even
Right.
if it doesn't get solved, now I have the courage to say it was unsolvable, but here's
Mhm.
path 2, right?
Mhm.
Like there's, I
Right.
have that. It's that being able to live within your truth and have your soul that lets you handle these problems and have the confidence to even say, I can't solve this one, right? Like this is a problem I can't solve, and be good with that, and have your leadership be good with that, because they know if it could have been solved, Jen would have solved it.
That's right.
So, like having that kind of confidence,
Yes.
to say, even if it is unsolvable, I tried, but I couldn't solve it. That's what makes all the difference in the world. You're not
Right.
working from a place of fear anymore, which so
Yes.
much of us do, women.
Yes.
So many of us do, junior in career, but any level in career. So many women are working from a place of fear. And once you're
Yes.
out of that and you don't let yourself get in that, it's a whole different ball game. It really is.
Right. And that is the place of overworking. And that is the place of burnout.
Yep.
And Nadia, I know you have a lot of personal interests and you have a lot of other creative talents. And I know you've been getting that back in your life. So what else has been possible for you? Owning your truth, being a powerful version of you, being able to rise in different levels of executiveship, and be able to just basically live a whole life versus just this one track workhorse, which I know you know how to do that, but now you're not a one track workhorse.
I know how to do workhorse very well. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're not confident in your own value, when you don't see how much you're worth, you're really constantly striving and trying to prove yourself to others. And it takes so much energy, and you're constantly just working hard, hoping to get noticed by somebody else that you're working hard, and just burning yourself out because you're doing things that are not feeding your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And when I changed that mindset of striving and trying to prove myself, it's just so much easier to live life.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you have all this extra time and energy to spend on other things as well. Like I play classical piano, I started writing poetry, I paint, I have all these creative endeavors that before I didn't even have time or energy for, because I was so overworked. And I think one of the myths is that the higher you go on the corporate ladder, the more you work. And it's not necessarily true. I mean, you could do it that way.
You could. It's a choice.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to, because the higher you are, the more you need to focus on decision making, as Jennifer was saying, and solutioning, rather than doing the busy bee work that you could delegate.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, it's one of the hallmarks of the leaders, figuring out how to scale and delegate.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting. One would think that when you're burnt out, you would want to do the creative pursuits as sort of like a relief from feeling burnt out. But when you're burnt out, you don't have even an ounce of energy to do the things that you truly love or enjoy, or that open you up. And you've been able to do that so remarkably. The other thing I want to comment on is also your choice to be seen and heard as a speaker and a thought leader, and participating in the beautiful platform of LinkedIn as someone who has great thoughts and ideas about the challenges of the workplace. You've done a great job being a thought leader there. What has that shown you about who you really are and what's possible for you to be really a big time leader?
Yeah, that was one of my goals, to become a thought leader. And it was terrifying because I do not necessarily like putting myself into a spotlight. But once I started doing it, it was actually an amazing experience. I started writing on LinkedIn, and I did a 30-day challenge when I posted an atomic essay every day. Mm-hmm. And I got such wonderful feedback from people. Somebody read every single one of my essays and said, wow, that was like a crash course in leadership and technology.
Yeah.
And it just gave such a boost to my own confidence and made me realize, wow, I know a lot, and and I have a lot to share. And it's very rewarding to share with others and to help them learn something that I've learned already, and maybe bring them along a little bit faster.
Right. If you were the leader of yourself 5 years ago,
Mhm.
what would you say to her, or what would you advise or mentor her to say? What would you?
Oh, I would advise myself 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, well, I had to start with creating boundaries.
Mhm.
As easy as that.
Mhm.
And then aiming higher and not being afraid to aim higher, because I had so much more in me than I realized, really.
Yeah.
And I was really selling myself too short.
Yeah.
Literally, I was selling myself too cheap. I was underpaid for a
Yeah.
big part of my career.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a couple of the bursts through, and just sort of having to almost like energetically match up with what you knew was true, but still inside, the inside had to like grow into that truth. And now you're playing at a very high level, you're influencing in your organization at a very high level. What's possible for you now?
Well, I think even a higher level is possible. I don't think it ever ends, this growth. And I feel it every time. I have to step into the next level of my identity before I can actually make it happen in the real world.
Yeah.
It's an internal shift happens when all of a sudden I realize, well, this is done. Now I can move to the next level. But
Mhm.
it's always internal precedes the external.
Mhm. Right. Absolutely. Jennifer, you've stepped into a beautiful aspect of who you are. You're rocking it in your current role. You're being seen as a leader. You're being asked to do other things and lead in other ways in your organization. What would you say to yourself 3 years ago from this vantage point?
I would say to speak my truth and know your value, and that you know a lot more than you think you do. I
Mm.
was 5 years ago still in this martyr phase, right? Where
Wow.
I had to work the hardest to prove
Mhm.
I had worth or value to the company.
Yeah.
I would say, don't do that. You don't fill in
Yeah.
every blank.
Yeah.
Don't be the martyr,
Yeah.
like sit back, understand your worth, and show people your value by
Mhm.
stepping up as a leader, because you are a leader and you have a tremendous amount of knowledge, but come from your place of truth. Don't put on this veneer of being the hardest worker. It's not getting you anywhere. It's not
Right.
getting you
Exactly.
anywhere, right? It's not.
Yeah.
You look
Right.
frantic. You don't
Yeah.
look literally, you look frantic.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said Jen Ryan doesn't work hard, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
given. But can Jen Ryan be put in charge of a team of 20? I don't
Right.
know. She's always running all over the place, right?
That's right. Can we trust
So,
her? Can we
right.
be burning herself out too fast? That's, you know what, as you're saying that, I've had many clients who have been told they're not promotable because of exactly that thing that you just
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah. You look frenetic. So everything you're doing to
Mhm.
work harder and work harder is working
Mhm.
against you.
Yes.
Sit back, be the observer,
Mhm.
be the voice of reason, be the
Yeah.
one who really listens and is
Yeah.
thinking about solutions, not just thinking about what to say next because you feel like you owe it to
Yeah.
speak, right? Owe it to the group to speak.
Yeah.
And I always had it in my heart to be, I was always a mentor. I
Mhm.
always was looking out for the next generation, looking out for other women. So my heart was always in the right
Yeah.
place. I didn't have the communication tools and I didn't have the confidence to speak my truth. And if I
Mhm.
would have known that 5 years ago, I would be in a very different place. And I always think the universe puts you where you need to be. And I definitely think I need to be with you and Nadia in this group to be even better than I ever could have been.
Yeah.
But I think I would have learned some very harsh lessons with a little bit less pain than I actually had to go through over the last 5 years,
Yeah.
right? Like I really,
We can grow through design rather than
rather
disaster.
than suffering, and to the
Yes.
point of Nadia working
Exactly.
to make, to the point I was sick and not coping and threw
Yes.
self-care out the window. So, if I could have gone back and given that precious young girl some
Yeah.
some advice, it would have been, you know, speak your truth and have trust in your power and trust in your knowledge, and you know, think about your communication style, because that's how you think about how you're showing up, because people look at that more so than the fact that you're up till midnight, you know, doing everybody's job for them.
Yeah. And if you had to sort of like wrap up the like a nugget for someone who might be in some similar shoes that you were in a few years ago, what would that nugget be?
That nugget to me would really be live in your present moment, right?
Yeah.
Be an observer. You're going to get so much more out of your career and lead such a more pleasant life if you can live in the present. Don't let, and this is, you know, don't let your mind be distracted with what so-and-so is saying and doing and what might happen down the road. And you do need to think all your angles, but you need to think your angles when you have a moment of quietness and you could sit with your truth and think all your angles. But if you're not in the present, you're never going to get your answer. And if you're being frenetic because you feel like you have to be the martyr and solve every problem, you're never going to be able to be in the present. And getting that quiet presence about you, being able to instill, you know, nuggets and gems and leadership speech to those around you is what's going to get you seen, right? Don't be the martyr. That's not who they want leading their team.
That's right. And you've seen other women who you've been in our coaching program with over the years in the different groups, who have transformed this sort of, let's just call it a personality trait for lack of a better word, who have transformed that and gotten into their truth and into their power. I just want to say for one last thing for you, and then I'll toss it back to Nadia. How much easier is life now because of that?
So much easier, because I have the confidence to speak my truth.
Yeah.
I'm not in a place of fear. And I think once you have the confidence to speak your truth, you can approach a manager, a leader, an employee and say with emotion in the appropriate place, this isn't working, let's find a new solution. Or I can't deliver on this deadline because it's irrational and that's just not something that can happen, without being in a place of fear and without covering and overworking and trying to find solutions that are impossible because you don't have a voice and you don't have the confidence and you don't have a grounding to be able to state you know, what the truth of a situation is. And that frees you to operate at your highest level of efficiency. And no matter how hard I work during my day, it's all for the positive. It's always advancing things. It's not covering. It's not trying to fix problems. It's not trying to retract things I've said or done. I'm always moving forward. And if I want to work a lot that day, I'll work a lot. If I need a moment, I'll take a moment. But when I come home at night, I go to bed and I say, 90% of the time, I've done the right thing. I feel good with all the choices I've made. I stepped up for myself. I stood in my power and I had a really good day, right? I mean, that's the difference. It's being able to go to bed with a calm mind without 16,000 things running around your head about, you know, what's left to be done. You've done everything you've done that day and you did it from your place of power and your place of truth. You did the most you could do and the best job you possibly could have.
It's interesting. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. The sort of the problem statement of sort of coming into the coaching work and doing the work has been completely different for you than it has for Nadia. But as you guys are sort of like capsulizing what has transpired in your transformation and who you are today, it's the same exact thing. Getting into your truth and being able to exert yourself in the world in a way that feels right and good for you. Nadia, what would be the other nuggets or the, you know, sort of final words that you would have on a journey of basically finding yourself and getting the guidance to get there?
Well, actually, speaking of guidance, I wish I had asked for help sooner. Well, I mean, I had to go on this journey in order to realize that I needed help.
Yeah.
But I had been thinking way in the back of my mind, I really wish there was somebody I could ask career advice of, somebody I could talk to about career, because I felt stuck for such a long time.
Mhm.
And it finally took me getting hospitalized with complete burnout. And I was sitting on a hospital bed, Googling career coaching on my phone. I would recommend not waiting until that point.
Yeah, exactly.
And do it earlier. So yeah, I sometimes, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had that wise counsel and advice sooner in my career. But I think another nugget that I keep returning to, and I'm seeing in a lot of people, is negotiating with themselves. So people decide they want to do something, but then they talk themselves out of it. So for example, like getting coaching, I kept telling myself, well, there's no way I can find somebody who would help me, or I can't afford it, and I wouldn't even do it. And then when it came to a point when I just had no choice, then that's when I did it. So, or negotiating salary even, I had asked for very large numbers for me a couple of times, and every time I had to stop myself from saying, there's no way they will give you this amount. Because once I say that to myself, I don't believe it in it, and that comes across in conversations. And every time I got the amount that I was asking for. So it's part of it is just not negotiating with yourself on behalf of other people.
Right. And the interesting thing is, we're sort of set up to not reach our highest potential because of the evidence that we get and that we internalize. And really from a coaching perspective, and of course I've seen this with not only the two of you, but so many, literally almost 2,000 women over the years, that when someone gives you permission, who knows you and understands you, that it's okay to exercise yourself to that level, it just feels a little bit more like you're not going to fail, or that it's appropriate. And so many women don't know the bigger game board. And as you know, I mean, I played the bigger game board, and sort of navigating, all right, that is okay for you to ask for it. That is what you would expect to be doing. That is the next level. Now that you see that, and now that you've allowed yourself to step into that. So, being a coach and giving advice and coaching is one thing, but when clients step into it and do it, that to me is like, where coaching is obviously the best game in town, because you need to be leveled up, because you want to do more and be more. And then here's how to do it. Okay, you step into that. And both of you ladies are such great examples of leaning into the process, leaning into the expertise, and taking yourself to that next level. And I just have loved this interview because I get to see both of you shining. I know the work that you did. You both did an amazing amount of work, self-reflection. There is discipline involved in becoming a better version of you. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Nadia and Jen, for sharing your stories. Thank you for being willing to express what it takes for a woman in today's day and age. We're getting a lot of inputs that say no, and to be able to say yes to yourself and up level. So thank you very much for sharing your journeys and your stories, so that you can inspire women who sound like you, look like you, or who don't, but the experience is exactly the same. Really, thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Thank you all for having us here.
Yeah. Happy to share.
It's been a lot of fun. Folks, if you resonate with Nadia and Jennifer and everything in between, if you're a professional woman who's not where you want to be, there is an opportunity for you to find your truth, find your soul's power, and to be able to exercise that at a different, better level, so that you can live a life that feels good. That's what these ladies are doing, and there's plenty more like them. Again, thank you, ladies. It's Coach Mofall, mofall.com/talk if you would like to get the process started. Again, Nadia and Jennifer, thanks so much.
Thank you.